Hi there. So, in honor of the E91 330D track car that I sold, I will talk you through one of my laps on the Nürburgring Nordschleife and yeah, maybe give a little introduction to the track in general. So, I would say, I mean, there's enough track guides out there for the Nürburgring, and it needs no introduction. I think if you're on my channel, you definitely know the Nordschleife from its fearsome reputation. The fact that it's the kind of the home of German automotive testing. Um, I will try to give a little bit of my personal take on it. So I, the Nürburgring Nordschleife is the track, is the first racetrack that I ever drove, on. Funny enough. Um, Looking back, if I would advise someone else who's new to the hobby of driving on racetracks, I would definitely say don't go to the Nürburgring as the very first track. Try to learn your car on a safer track first, something like somewhere with a lot more runoff. Go to some driver driver skills improvement training, drift training. Really improve your skills behind the wheel before you go to the Nürburgring. But in my case, the funny thing was I met up with a bunch of with two guys from an internet forum who are still my friends to this day. That was 15 years ago, in 2007. We of course knew the Nürburgring from the famous Top Gear episode, and we were like, oh, we live in Belgium. That doesn't seem that far away. Let's give it a go. And it was a very funny story. Our guide had done 5 laps, and we thought, wow, 5 laps. He really knows the track. So our guide Ronnie, he drove an Evo 8, awesome car. The other friend drove a Dodge Stealth TT. So it's like I believe it's a rebadged Mitsubishi 3000 GT. So it was like 3-liter V6 twin turbo, 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel steering. Really complicated car, but pretty fast. But you don't see those a lot anyway. And I had a Z4 3.0 back then, convertible. And it was a very funny story. We went to the track, and so Ronnie in the Evo took us around, and we were overtaking cars, being overtaken by other cars. It was mind blowing. The place, my very first lap on the track, I was like, oh my god, this is better than any roller coaster I've ever been on. But I could appreciate that it was pretty scary, and full of adrenaline, we go back to the pits. The other friend in the Stealth goes out for a lap with Ronnie. So that was Tom. So Ronnie's in the passenger seat, guiding him around, and so they go. I expect them to be back in 12 to 15 minutes, something like that. After 15 minutes, I don't see them. After 20 minutes, I don't see them. At this point, I was getting worried. I was thinking, well, that's not good. Even if you're taking it slowly, after 20 or so minutes, you should be back. because Jeremy Clarkson was aiming for 10 minutes. Obviously, 20 minutes you should be back. So then I get a call, and Tom and Ronnie are at Breitscheid. So it seemed like what happened was the corner just before Breitscheid, the brake disc on Tom's Stealth broke from the hub. I mean, can you imagine that? So and somehow Tom managed to not crash the Stealth. I don't know how he did it. I guess the speed was really low when the brake disc broke from the hub, and they were able to pull off at the Breitscheid exit. So they just the main thing was they needed to figure out how to fix the car. So yeah, in the end they left the car there. Went back like a week later with parts to repair the car, whatever. But yeah, so luckily they didn't crash. That was the main thing. But this left me with a tough choice. So I could either go for a lap without a guide, or I say, well, I call it a day and I drive back home. 3.5 hours back home without having done a lap. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll just drive it. So then I proceeded to drive the track blind. So you have to remember that I didn't do a single lap in Gran Turismo or any kind of like driving simulator prior to this trip. So it was absolutely terrifying. I had no idea where the hell the track was going. A whole bunch of blind corners. I had, people passing me, constantly. It was absolutely terrifying. But afterwards, I would say, that kind of started this addiction that's lasted for 15 years so far. And yeah, I keep going back. Embarrassingly, I've had a few crashes as well, but maybe that's for a different video, potentially a video about all of the corners that I've crashed at and what I learned. But anyway, so 15 years later, maybe 700 or so laps later, I can get around the track and in a reasonable speed. And what I can say about the Nürburgring is that no matter how slow you think your car is, the track itself is so fun that even in the slowest car that you can think of, it is still fun. So unlike, say, Spa-Francorchamps, where you do need some power, for Nürburgring you don't need power, and or okay, you need a little bit, but like even if you had 100 horsepower, it is enough to overtake some quite fast cars if you know what you're doing. So I would say it's a track that you never get tired of. It's a little bit like the Wild West in terms, the Touristenfahrten. The Touristenfahrten or tourist drives, it's like total chaos. You have cars, you have motorbikes, trucks, buses, camper vans, everybody. Like, as long as it's road legal, you can go on it. Just don't show up on a pedal bike. But as long as it's got an engine and it's road legal, it's got number plates, you can go on. So yeah, it's a little bit like the Wild West sometimes. But that's part of the appeal, I would say. And in the evenings, tourist drives, weekend tourist drives, and then during weekdays, industry pool, which is all the car manufacturers share the track, and they do their testing of all their latest and greatest. Everything from sports cars to SUVs, to EVs, you name it. That's enough of me rambling on. Let's watch the lap, and I'll try to talk through my recollection of how you're supposed to drive it. Oh yeah, first before we get to that, some words about the setup that you would want. So the thing about the Nürburgring is that you never know when you might hit some coolant or oil from some other car. So here I was going pretty slow, but you can see, hit some coolant, gotta catch it. So luckily I was not going very fast, but had I been going very fast, then that would have been a crash for sure. And also another thing worth mentioning, if it is wet, then it's really slippery. This is Mutkova. Yeah, it rained, and as you can see, it can get hairy pretty quickly. And oh yeah, I got some pretty good angle here as well. So for the Nürburgring, I would say definitely take some drift training before you go. Definitely helpful. And in terms of car setup, I would say compared to other tracks, I prefer a little bit more understeer at Nürburgring than typical at other tracks, because of the fact that it is a track that you need stability. You need a lot of stability. A lot of the corners are very fast. You don't want, say, the rear coming out over say Schrittenkreuz. So this was the fastest lap that I did in the E91. It was an 8:11, and yeah, I thought it was a pretty good lap. So initially, yeah, full throttle, and in the straight line, brake really hard, off the brakes, brake again, turn in, over the curb, use some of the curb, don't use the curb here, get the car straight, brake, turn in. This corner always feels really strange. Here, as you get to the brow, you have to brake. Sabine Schmidt's corner, you can turn in a lot earlier than you think. Here, there's a really fast right-hander coming up, so brake a little bit, turn in. Tires are really struggling. Brake in a straight line, off the brakes, on the brakes again, over the curb, back on the power, hit that curb, don't hit that curb, brake, over the curb, in, back on the power, use the curb. I didn't, but you can use it. Brake, in, and back on the power. Here you can finally relax a little bit, the small straight. Full throttle until over the brow, and as you go over the brow, start braking gently. Be very smooth. This is a very fast section. This corner, you take it as one. Be smooth. Use the full width of the track. That corner was very crucial because it leads on to such a long straight. This is absolutely the fastest part of the track if your car has some power. Even in the 330D, I reached 235. You had to brake before the brow, on the power over the brow, brake in a straight line, and then this right-hander is actually a lot more important than that fast left over the brow. So you can be conservative over that very dangerous left, but make sure you really get that right-hander right. So coming down, Fuchsrohr, definitely don't brake in the dip. You have to be on the power through the dip, and then brake really hard after it. Adenauer Force, this is the section where a lot of people don't remember that they have to turn left and run straight through the grass. So the next section, I try to miss the left-hand side because it's a little bit bumpy. So then, Metzgersfeld, some trail braking into the second one. Oh yeah, so you can see on the G meter that maximizing braking and then transitioning trail braking. Oh, rear steps out a little bit. The next corner you can typically take a lot faster than you think. In this car it was just a slight lift and then in. This is miss hit miss. So you miss the first one. You're supposed to hit the second one. Yeah, I made a miss. And then now we're coming to the slowest corner where siphon, brake, off the brake, brake again, in, and then back on the power. Now going downhill towards Brightside Bridge, you have to, because it's downhill, you got to brake a little bit earlier than you think. So brake the brake, turn in, back on the power. Use the full width of the track all the time. Brake in, and then back on the power. So here the elevation really helps you to turn the car. So in general, for Nürburgring, you really have to be mindful of the vertical load. So yeah, now the links going to Berg, but the vertical because you have to remember, if you're going over a brow, then the grip available to you will be less than if you're going through a compression. So that and the Nürburgring has plenty of those. This section, Kesselchen, it's possible to keep a consistent steering angle for most of that portion. This is a very fast left-hander. In the wet, it gets pretty tricky. Here, if you're in a low power car, then you can just relax. It's a pretty boring section. But yeah, if you're in a car with some power, then it gets interesting. This is Mutkurve or Auskurve, depending, bravery corner or fear corner, depending on your view to it. This is Stahlstärke, brake in a straight line. In, back on the power, heading towards the carousel, the famous carousel. The corner itself is kind of boring, but it is very iconic. I mean, many other racetracks have copied this section due to how iconic it is. Full throttle, going towards full act. This is pretty much flat. Just need to get your line right, and then brake in, back on the power, off the power, in, back on the power again, brake in, back on the power again. Here, there's a bit of a hump, so go over it straight, bring the car left, and then in, and then brake really hard, back on the power, left, brake a bit. Sorry, you don't brake, and then just over you really have to use the curbs to cut the, you really have to cut the second curb to go as fast as possible. Now coming to the famous Brunchen or YouTube corner. This is where you see a lot of YouTube videos of the Nürburgring. Over the curbs, brake, and then in. There's a lot more grip here than some other places, I think, because people push so hard in that corner. This is Eiskurve. Quite often, you can use the curb on the right, coming towards Sprunghügel, where you can get very nice pictures if you keep your foot in it. You have to brake before the jump or after the jump. Just don't brake over the jump, or your ABS will have a panic, and you will end up with some brown pants. So this is the Franzgarten Part 2. Unfortunately, had to slow down quite a bit for that car. This portion, you just have to pick the right line and be really soft on the steering. Just let the car do its thing. Coming towards Schwalbenschwanz. Oh, sorry. No, I think I got the name wrong. But anyway, this is the kleine carousel, so small carousel. And now we're coming towards the end of the lap. Brake in, and then the turning point is just before that yeah, signpost on the left. And yeah, end of the lap, and finally can relax. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed the lap. I will post a link to the actual lap without my commentary. So yeah, hope the video was interesting. I, in terms of other channels, resources on the Nürburgring, I can definitely recommend One Lap Heroes, Bridge to Gantry, and then the Robert, I forgot his name, but the owner of Apex Nürburgring, he has a pretty good channel as well. In terms of rental companies, I've personally rented from Rent4Ring quite a lot. A friend has rented from Apex. Both had good experiences with both companies. Myself especially with Rent4Ring, but I think all the rental companies are very good. The main thing to remember is that if you come to the Nürburgring, don't, like, especially as a foreigner, definitely do not say rent a car from Hertz or Avis and go to the Nürburgring and lap the car. They expressly forbid it. There's hundreds of photographers there. Okay, maybe not hundreds, but tens of photographers around the track every tourist spot, and they will take photos of the cars. The rental companies will sometimes check if they find that you drove your rental car on the Nürburgring when you're not supposed to. It's in the contract. You will be hit with a very large bill. Plus, all the specialized rental companies like Rent4Ring, Apex, RSR, Rent Race Car, whatever. The cars are specifically prepared for the Nürburgring. The insurance is sorted out. You have third-party cover, which is really important. If you crash, there is, of course, a very typically quite a large sum that you would be liable for. Well, depending on the amount of damage, of course, but there is like a maximum limit. It can be quite high, but then there are sometimes options to buy it down beforehand by taking additional insurance. But yeah, so I would definitely say that the Nürburgring is the #1 automotive experience if you ever come to Europe. And with that, hope you enjoyed the video. Till next time.